Welcome to Exploring Digital with Purr, a podcast for entrepreneurs and CEOs who want their businesses to benefit from a digital-first approach.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Exploring Digital with Purr. I'm joined today by Alex Minchin from Zest Digital. Hi, Alex.
Hey, Nick.
So do you want to kick us off by telling us a little bit about Zest and what makes you guys so special?
Sure, yeah. So I founded Zest in 2010, so we should be celebrating a decade on June the 18th. Some way to celebrate it, I'm sure. But we basically build online marketing funnels end-to-end for mostly B2B businesses, selling quite high-ticket services. What makes us so special? We do the whole lot. So we're not linked to any one particular technology or brand, like HubSpot or anything like that. So we connect kind of the best technologies, the best channels for each client individually. We do end-to-end, so we manage the traffic source, which is normally paid social, PPC and SEO, through to the landing page development, design, conversion optimization. I guess another thing that we kind of do that I don't see done a lot is that we actually forecast revenue before we start with any client. So we work from the revenue goal backwards to kind of reverse engineer that into what that looks like in terms of traffic and conversions. And then we follow that process through until we understand how many leads we need to get at various different conversion rates and different traffic rates. So we normally come up with 3 scenarios per account. And that way we kind of have a lot more predictability in what we can get for a client. So when we work with someone, we know what the end goal is, because as long as everything we do follows, we work in like tests. As long as every test follows a strategy and works towards the objective is linked completely to the revenue goal at the end. So we can be a bit more confident about the work we do. It just means that every task we do has a purpose rather than being a task for the sake of a task.
Very cool. So I see you're referred to as a digital growth agency. Is that accurate?
Yeah. So to be honest, there's no real difference between any of these names. We were referred to as digital marketing. For me, digital marketing is getting a bit bland and a bit kind of samey. So a way of kind of differentiating ourselves.
It's a good way of distinguishing. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just it was a moment in time where we reflected on, well, what are we actually doing? Digital marketing is doing, whereas the growth part is really central to what we do, because
and signifies that the strategy that goes into it.
Absolutely, everything has to end up with revenue growth. Otherwise, we're not going to be around for long.
So you mentioned that had progressed from being broader digital marketing. So has that been your kind of existence for 10 years? That it was always it was end to end and it was digital marketing, or is that something you've evolved into?
It was always digital marketing, so it has evolved over that time. So I started with pure SEO. I've done SEO since I was like 12 years old, so it's been a long time. And then from
keyword stuffing, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I even did pop-up spam back in the day and earned affiliate income from it. So I've seen the darker sides and the lighter sides. We're on the light side now. So the main thing was that we did SEO, and then out of that, working with small budgets and small businesses, normally the websites were terrible, and it'd be a case of like, well, we can't work with it, but we need the business. So can we do your website for you as well? And from there, you kind of, I guess, bolt on different services as you're kind of growing as a business. And then, as the years went on and we were a bit more stable and established, we started to remove some of those services and really kind of focus down on really paid and I say search engine marketing, including SEO and the paid side. We bought in paid social because of the power it has and the kind of affiliation with just paid work in general. And we moved. We do web design. We've done web design for a long time, but we're slowly moving away from developing websites. And we're really we still do it, but we're putting all of our focus into developing landing pages and complete funnels, so that we're bored of creating like about us pages. It's just not it's not exciting. So every page we do has to have a purpose and lead towards a conversion event, and we try and make sure that it's step by step and trackable throughout.
Completely. But I think it's interesting that you've seen that as a trend because it feels like so much of B2B marketing is about the landing page and the funnel. It's not about the inbound SEO of landing somewhere on a content page and then navigating around a site and expecting that there will be this journey that turns into something. It's how am I getting them through that funnel?
Yes, definitely. I think the problem with a website is you always talk about yourself on a website. We've been around for this long. We do this. We're good at this.
Yeah.
Here's the services that we offer. And when a client lands on a website, you are effectively letting them walk into the shop and just completely browse on their own. And a lot of the time, people can get distracted. They can get lost. They can just forget what they've done. And with the added constraints of a shorter, we've got a shorter attention span and less time to do things. So it could be something as simple as being called down for dinner, or the train journey ends and you're now home, so you put that phone in your pocket. So because of that, websites are they're just incredibly distracting places. And with a funnel, exactly what you said, you could just nurture people to each stage, and you have complete transparency of where they are within your funnel, but also you're reducing the number of distractions and exit points on at any one point in time. So when someone lands on the next stage, they can only take the action that you want them to take, or they exit. So it's very crystal clear how well something is performing, and therefore you can then make the changes that will improve it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just part of a general trend of sort of design and build being on the decline, but the digital marketing, or digital growth as you call it, being on the up. But if you're not delivering functionality of some sort or a service through that site, what is the purpose of it? You've got to really think carefully about it.
We're in the process of adding kind of more outreach services as well. So more kind of cold email outreach, which is being, it's incredibly effective at the best of times, more so than people think. And actually, we're starting to expand that a little bit more now because of the situation we're in. Email.
Absolutely, yeah.
Email is a great way of reaching someone. Things like cold calling are just falling flat because, where do you phone someone? Are their phones linked to their house? It's just a bit kind of crazy at the minute.
That, or you end up in a queue or some sort of IVR waiting to actually get through to someone. So yeah, email and LinkedIn in particular seems to have been such a big opportunity over the last few months.
Definitely.
So, let's talk about what's happened since COVID. So you mentioned earlier that it was quite well timed for you as an agency, just internally, with the fact that you'd just gone to a remote only model anyway. So being ahead of the curve must have been lovely.
Yes, yeah, it was definitely more luck than judgment. Last August, I started thinking about whether we needed an office and some of the challenges that we were going through at the time. The biggest challenge we have being based in rural Oxfordshire is the access to talent. And there's lots of dynamics within that. So, the cost of living is high, the population is small. So you're constantly going through these challenges where, some of the younger guys that come on and join you might be really good, but at some point they have to think about themselves and, where are they going to live and how are they going to buy a house? And so we constantly kind of, I wouldn't say we went through a churn, but we went through this period of twice actually, where we knew that churn was coming, and it was a natural churn after sort of 2 to 3 years. But it was the cost and the time and the stress of being able to recruit freely to be able to replace those people, in such a way that made it kind of, at some points where some people weren't the right fit for our business, I swept it under the carpet because it was easier to just nod and get on with it than to actually do something about it and to, to actually make change. And it was taking 6 to 9 months to, replace, even at the exec level.
Oh, wow. Very long. Yeah.
To get the right person in was a long time. So it was really the recruitment.
Did that often involve relocation as well? Or was it just a case of there weren't that many people in the area, or are you trying to get people to move in?
It's, we were based just north of Oxford in a place called Kidlington. The number of people that do digital to a high standard who happen to be available, who happen to live within half an hour of our office was too small. And that was really the that was something that I kind of battled with a couple of years ago. In fact, like 4 years ago. And last year, I went through the same problem again. And I was like, I can't go through this again. If I do it again, I'm just going to lose patience and interest. And instead, I looked at, well, if I remove the problem of talent and talent acquisition and that side of it, then that means that I can focus on the other things that help us to achieve our goals and help me to achieve my goals as well as a business owner. So that happened around October, where I made that actual decision to do it, and then we announced it to the team in January, and we very quickly ramped up from Jan to the end of Feb. Feb 28th was our cut-off point. March the 2nd was our Independence Day. No broadband contracts, no office, the rest of it. So we kind of went from 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 days a week very, very quickly, so that everybody could adapt and adjust. And then we had those days in the office to be able to then go over stuff. We kept work from home diaries, so we made those compulsory, which means that as people are working from home, they have to then record. They have to record. It could be something positive or negative, doesn't matter which. Just sum up the morning and the afternoon. So we had things like really simple problems, like I don't have an extension cable long enough. Well, that's easily solved, and it's a very valid bit of feedback. So we had stuff like that, and then we had things like, I thought communication would be much harder, but actually it's a lot easier because everyone's more descriptive and has to explain themselves more, and the notes are clearer. So it was really nice. It was a nice thing to have that kind of extra time to adapt over this period. So I really feel for some companies who have had to do that in a week or two.
Absolutely. So you mentioned it was something you'd announced to the team. So I did a similar exercise probably 6 months ago where I said, is this something that people would be prepared to do, rather than it was something I was considering, certainly. And there was pushback, which surprised me. And there were a number of people who said, I would prefer to come to the office. And I think part of that was possibly, we were central London rather than rural setups. And it was, people liked coming in because there was other things going on in their lives that, they could do when they're in London, whether that was the gym or social life. But what's interesting is having seen how it's been adopted the other side, and how people are actually kind of happy with the fact that it's happened. So was there any pushback in your team, or were people pretty uniformly happy to accept it?
There definitely was. There was pushback. I think one of the things that we did to mitigate that was we considered all of the challenges and all of the concerns that people might go through. So, we have the same concerns. So when I say we, I mean me and my leadership team. And, we looked at kind of, okay, so if someone's going to miss the social aspect, someone's going to miss that face-to-face communication. So when that's the case, we looked at how we could then answer that question up front. So for us, it was about planning regular events and making sure there's always an event on the horizon so that someone has something to look forward to. We use things like buddying up and having team meetings face-to-face to try and get around some of those things. So it made it a lot easier, because when we had the actual meetup, and we also kind of tricked the team a little bit, which sounds bad, but we said to everyone, work from home today in the morning and then come and meet us in the afternoon, and we're going to have an off-site session. And as people arrived, we were like, oh, how's your day been? And we got answers like, oh man, if only I could work from home more, because I was so productive this morning. So it kind of teed us up, which wasn't kind of the idea, but it worked really nicely. And so when we delivered it to the team, we basically said, look, here's some of the concerns that you might be thinking. And we went down the list, and then we said how we were already planning to mitigate them. We'd taken into consideration the things like the work from home diary. So we said, this is your opportunity to make sure that transition period allows us to get rid of some of those kinks that might come. And we said, we were really honest and just said, look, this isn't going to be for everyone, but the perks for us where we are, and I totally understand the London thing. A lot of it's the social aspect. You finish in London, you pop out the door, you cross the road, you're at a pub or a coffee shop or at the gym. For us, everyone had a half an hour, commute or more. So it was really about winning that time back, and the office wasn't as much of a pull, even though it was a really nice office. At the end of the day, it was in an industrial estate in rural Oxfordshire, So I think we did have pushback, and I think the key there was really we made that an open thing, and we gave people time and the tools to be able to give honest feedback with no judgment. That was another key.
So, being slightly ahead of the curve, you mentioned the original plan was that there would be more away days or more events or things like that. What would you say, having been through a little bit of that being an option, and now that isn't an option? Are there things that you are recommending that your team do? Are there things that you look forward to, or are there ways that you're spending the money that you're saving on an office with your team in interesting ways, and are there sort of tips you'd give people for things they should be considering with their teams?
Yes, so the event side has obviously not gone to plan, but we've just shifted it in some ways. So, for example, next Wednesday we're doing a team picnic. The weather's supposed to be good, fingers crossed. And our EA, who was our office manager, so one of their job role shifts was to go. One of their concerns, her concerns was very valid. We don't have an office. What's my job? So we took the office management part away from her and just replaced it with coordinating team events. So because we can't do the physical stuff now, we do team challenges. So every day we do, and it's optional. We're doing team squats at the minute, but we did team press ups beforehand.
Oh wow!
And we measure everything, we graph everything. So at the start of the squat challenge, we were at 63 average squats across the people doing it. We're now at 127.
That's pretty good.
Which is pretty mental, yeah. People are knocking out like 180 squats in one sitting. I'm not at that level yet. So that's been really good. Press ups was the same, where we just had a 100 press up challenge, and next Wednesday we're doing a picnic. So Rachel is organising that with the team members. Everyone's going to cook something nice. We're going to extend lunch, and we're just going to have a Zoom call and really just sort of zone out for a bit, enjoy the sun. I think one of the other things in the situation we're in right now is to respect that you don't have to work a working day.
Yeah, of course.
A 2-hour lunch is absolutely fine, and it's the boost in morale and the social aspect is worth far more than just having that boundary of having an hour for lunch.
It's hardly the time for clock watching.
No, absolutely not.
And there's no FaceTime to be had.
Yeah.
So I guess the other area I wanted to chat through with you was that not only as a business have you had to deal with this, but you're involved in lots of B2B marketing, and what your perspective was on how your clients have seen their business hampered in terms of leads being generated, income being generated through sites or digital marketing, and whether you've had to sort of shift what you're offering to be able to support them better.
Yeah, so we've had, like different agencies, I'm sure we're not the only ones, but we definitely have been impacted. A lot of our clients' sort of supply chains just kind of fell off the bandwagon a little bit. We had a couple of clients who were reliant on events for supplying those. Mm-hmm. And that really hit them hard. So at the same time, we didn't kind of fall off a cliff edge. We kind of went in waves of paused accounts. We really worked with the clients, and I think the key thing is having that communication. So we basically split our teams. I mentioned before this call around kind of the scenario planning that we put in place. And then one of those things was to really split our team and to redefine our team into retention and promotion. And they're the only two things for me that matter right now. And it was a really simple way of just saying your job is to look after clients and to make sure they're okay. And that involves, giving our clients calls at least every other day, just staying close to them, trying to help them as best we can. And the other side of the other people in the promotion team, your job's to win business, and it's to give value away for free, make connections, try and help people out, and where you can, try to generate some revenue and some leads. In terms of like restructuring our business or our offers, one of the things we did was gear up for a lower entry point. So typically a year ago, to work with Zest, you would have to come in as a client spending, upwards of £10,000 to be able to work with us. And there was no kind of try before you buy, there's no trial period, there's nothing like that. So that's fine when you build trust and you have that kind of relationship that builds up over time, married up with some reputation. At the moment, it's in the client, you have to work with the clients and the prospects that are out there and the businesses. So the things like restructuring our contracts so that people aren't tied in as much is really important. We reduced the barrier to entry by looking at how we could rework some of our services and almost productize certain parts of it so that they only had to do that bit. We've also released a new service called Infinity, which helps to fill the voids within our team, which has been really, really good for us. A lot of interest. We've won 3 clients already in 2 weeks, and the idea behind that was really to help businesses with what they need right now, which is quick promotion at an affordable cost. But for us, that also helps to build our pipeline, our future pipeline, because
of course,
they might not be ready now, but those clients are paying customers with us. And in time, as long as we do a good job, we will, we might be there when they need something more, hopefully.
Absolutely. And it feels sort of alien or counterintuitive because so much of agency culture for the last few years has been about, paid discovery phases and not doing any speculative work. And it is sort of backpedaling slightly on that. But I think it's a situation that everyone finds themselves in, certainly.
Yeah, I think so. I think one of the key bits, for me is I'm all about sort of patterns, trends, and systems. Really, I'm a bit nerdy like that. But one of the key things for me, and what I mentioned to the team, is we have to generate a winning momentum. That's really, really important. Is when everyone's losing business and kind of bits of you are falling off every week, and it's hard. And to generate a winning momentum and winning mentality, no matter how small that is, and the confidence that brings to you, and
winning any new client right now or bringing in any new piece of work is an achievement, and that should be celebrated.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier that a growing area of the business was email as a source of lead generation. And I just wanted to ask a little bit more about how you'd structured that. And so was that a trend that you were observing anyway? And how has that ramped up over the last couple of months?
So that's really, really, really early days. We haven't launched it yet. We've got one proposal out at the moment, which features it as a way of generating interest for PPE material, PPE equipment, which is kind of restricted on advertising platforms still. So the way that came about was actually doing it for ourselves. We do quite a bit of outreach, and we have quite a bit of success from it. And then also just figuring out, because we work with B2B, yes, we can advertise on the normal platforms, but actually if we really want to hit someone with a message, then that is a very valuable part of a funnel, and we shouldn't just ignore it to say that we do PPC and SEO. We've got experience doing it for ourselves, so we're looking at where we are right now is processing that out completely, and then working out how we can then start with a small batch outreach for clients. So small batch being up to 1,000 emails or messages a month, and that means 1,000 data rows as well. So it's fairly low scale.
Yeah, understood. So something that could be a growing area of interest for you over time. Is that sort of going to be in conjunction with any of the social approaches? I mean, I've spoken to people who've said that social's been a big thing for them over the last couple of months in terms of lead generation. Does it work hand in hand with that side of it for you?
Yeah. So the key way it marries up is by doing smart outreach and making sure the message is, really spot on, making sure that there's, an offer that is attractive to the person that you're trying to outreach to. Those things will then generate the traffic. And then once they're on the website, we can then activate things like remarketing, retargeting. So then they're in.
Yeah, of course.
That first initial interaction can unlock so many other ways of acquiring different sort of touch points with an audience, so that you can be in front of them, for the next 30, 60, 90 days, however long it takes. And really just, it's a great way of doing that, because things like chatbots as well, people landing on, you can then greet people with a customized message once they've interacted with you. So
yes,
for an example, let's say you're a business selling PPE equipment, you would outreach to generate interest in seeing your pricing menu, for example. The pricing menu is gated by an email. As soon as they've given you that data, one, you have a very soft lead, but a lead nonetheless. Secondly, you have the remarketing capability to then push them through to the next stage. And really, you can then reach that person with multiple messages. Then you're getting those touch points that allow you to progress that person. So it's it definitely does dovetail with a lot of other channels.
As an agency that has part of its core model of setting an expectation of revenue generated from a marketing campaign and then working backwards to set the strategy, do you think that's something you'll still be able to do with such uncertainty in markets, with businesses facing so much turmoil, with the economy losing a quarter of its value? Or do you think it's going to have to change at all to be able to match that?
Yeah, I don't see us changing, because it is fundamentally the core of what we do and what we believe in. And, I've been around long enough now where I see the people that aren't necessarily the best they can be. The reasons that normally falls down to is because then they don't have a goal. They don't have a very clear goal, and they're not accountable for a goal. So the way that we work gives us that clarity, and it means that we can connect with our client to make sure we're going towards the same thing. Once we have the revenue goal, it has to then boil down, really translate into a traffic and a conversion goal. If we achieve X number of people through the door and convert Y, we will be somewhere close to that revenue goal. Now, there's lots of moving parts within that. There's the quality of the traffic, the quality of the conversions, the value of the conversions, etc. But by having the goal, it means you're always working towards it, and the things that you're improving are always working towards the common goal between you. I think if we took that away, then we would fall back into a sense of, saying, "Oh, we're working on these rankings and we're going to try and get you to this position." It's so volatile. It's just a poor goal for me, and I much prefer having a target and not hitting it than not having a target at all.
Completely, yeah. And so much of business recovery is business growth anyway. If you're just thinking short-term recovery, then what's the longer-term vision? And hopefully they're aligned.
Yeah, 100%. I always say, you have to think about your future pipeline. It's not what you have there now. We've gone through this. I'm sure many businesses have that will be listening to this, where you go through these periods where you win lots of business, you've got a heavy pipeline, it's all great, and some of it closes and some of it doesn't, and you haven't been working on your future pipeline, and you find yourself thinking, what's left? Where do I go now? So always having that in mind, and I think the businesses that survive this period, and we're far from over it, but I think the businesses that will survive and will thrive at the other end are those thinking about how do they adapt for their new customer, rethinking their customer. They're not the same people as they were 3 months ago or however long it's been, lose track. How has their life changed? How does working from home make them different? Have they got kids? Does that mean it's more stressful? Do they need less time on video calls, or, an easier to digest way of presenting information? So I think that by adapting those things and just really sticking to the numbers and working with the numbers that are coming, seeing patterns that emerge, for me, the patterns give you so much insight, because you're talking about a collection of people, or whatever, you're talking about lots of data that is showing the same trend. And that's something that's interesting to me because it's not always accurate, but it gives you something to dive into. And then you start to go into the detail. One of the other things I've seen is people overthinking and overreacting to the crisis. It almost feels like irresponsible of me to say it. But I just think if people took a deep breath at the start and just waited, a week or two to really see what's happening, then, it'd be a bit less chaotic. I think it's stabilized now. But it's easy to panic in these times, but you panic when you don't know what you're looking for a lot of the time.
Absolutely. But if you spend the first couple of weeks coming up with the strategy of, well, how can we do a lower price point that gets people in and still works on that long-term pipeline, then that's, a better use of time than panicking and slashing your staff and then realizing it's harder to come back from.
100%. This knee-jerk reactions don't win anyone anything really, because yes, everyone's needed to make cutbacks on certain things, and some people are thriving and they've got the other issue, which is how do they, growing so fast, how do they deal with it whilst working from home? So there's lots of different challenges at play, and I think for me, and what I mentioned earlier, is just we've always been analytical in our mindset. So I like to look at scenarios. I like to look at patterns. I like to try and make sense of what I'm seeing and then react accordingly, and try and plan as much as I can, for the future, but knowing that certain things are going to be uncertain as well. So to give you a real life, to put that into context and to give you a real example, we split our pipeline into two. So we have our normal pipeline, which we work from on and have done for years. And we use two metrics, which is quality score and gut feel, to give us a head and a heart score per deal that we have on. And understandably, at the moment, that is all over the place. So from having those metrics, if we hit a certain quality score and a certain gut feel, we can then forecast that deal in as more likely to close. Because of COVID-19, that has really shaken the ability to work with that metric. So what we've done, rather than change the pipeline and change how we've always done things, and we might well change it in future if it continues like this. But for now, we've split the pipeline out. So we have a C19 pipeline, which we use. It's an exact copy of our existing pipeline, but we have more license to be able to make, to be able to guess what's going to happen, because that's ultimately what we're doing. So, to say, if on the normal pipeline we said, what's the gut feel, everyone? And one of our account managers might say, I just don't know. Maybe it's, 10%, because they're not feeling confident. So by having a C19 version, we have what if that did come in? What if they have a week next week and that comes in? So we can then marry the two. So we can see like a min and max almost in terms of what we can expect. And it just, again, creates another sort of, another pattern, another trend, another
of course,
foresight of what's coming.
I think it's so critical, because I fear that there are lots of agencies who, if you're basing, or businesses in general, if you're basing your projection for your business on your bad feeling that day, then you're not going to be able to respond quickly enough to scale up as the business does come in. And that could be the thing that finishes you off rather than allows you to thrive.
Yes, yeah, definitely. I mentioned before that we have scenario plans. So, scenario planning and making sure that we're equipped for what happens is really important. We have a best, worst, and expected scenario plan set. And effectively, we're saying if, some of our clients have paused with us, a challenge that most agencies, I guess, are going through. What happens if they don't come back? What happens if they say we're paused, but we're going to come back, and it just never happens? They might go bust, or they might decide that actually they don't want to come back. What happens if everyone came back and we started to grow with some of the new services and everything went to kind of plan? And then we have an expected scenario plan too, which is really taking a combination of the both and saying, okay, well, we don't think this client's going to be ready. Been hit so hard that we just don't think we're going to be back in 2 months. So it might be 6, it might be 12, it might be never. But one client who is, literally just trying to get their CBILS loan through, had to pause because they have to be shown to be doing absolutely everything to cut costs and save their own business before they get approved that loan. So we had that conversation where he was like, look, guys, I'm coming back. I just need to basically cut everything, get my loan in, and then we'll be back. He's got guarantees from the bank that, they're going to help him through it and all the rest of it. So you've got, in that instance, we've got an almost guaranteed client coming back to us, in which case we can then put that in the expected and in the best, but also the worst. So it just helps us to know where we are in any point of time.
That's super interesting. And I think there's been some really, really good suggestions in there, things that any business can take on board and work on. So Alex, thank you so much for talking to me today. It's been really, really helpful.
Thank you very much for having me. Cheers, Nick.
Pleasure. Well, thanks everyone for joining another episode of Exploring Digital with Purr. We'll see you again next time. Thanks.
Thanks for joining. Remember to subscribe and follow us, and to share today's insights with other businesses who want to stay relevant in a digital-first world.